Hi, my name is Cailey, and I'm a librarian at Mentor Public Library.
And my name is Meg. I'm also a librarian here. And welcome to All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each week we've been going over some book recommendations that you might be interested in, all related to a different theme. So Cailey, tell me what this week's theme is, huh?
How does it best?
Yes, awesome. If you could hear that, that was definitely the beginning of Hamilton, the hit musical that just released, so you can watch it on Disney Plus. Cailey and I, what, are we into this, Cailey, or what? So we're going to be just a little bit, yeah. So we're going to be talking about books all related to the world of Hamilton. If you love Hamilton as much as we have been enjoying it, you might be interested in these books.
Yes, it's going to be a fun one. And all of the books we talk about today are available at the library and as well on either Hoopla or Libby by Overdrive, free with your library card. So Meg, what is your first Hamilton read?
Yes, so my first book is a teen trilogy series. It's the first book in the series called Alex and Eliza by Melissa de la Cruz. So in this first book, it starts out in 1777 in Albany, New York. So this first book in the trilogy just covers Alexander Hamilton and Eliza's courtship and then ends with their marriage. So it goes through those initial really sweet years where they meet and they're kind of, courting. So it starts at the ball. So if you've seen the musical, that big, where they first meet at the ball, it kind of goes over that scene. And it's really cute. One historian who works at the Schuyler House that's still around today calls the Schuylers the Kardashians of their day. So the book is kind of cute because it shows the dynamic between the sisters and the family, kind of like this big family that kind of, has fun together and does different things. So it's really cute. It's less political and historical than the actual, musical. So it's more leans into the romance, Alex and Eliza's romance. It's a little bit more of a slow burn. So initially they, are attracted to each other, but, they have their ups and downs, their moments of, annoyance with each other. So, it's a cute progression throughout it. And then there's some interesting differences between this and the play. It doesn't really lean as heavy into the Angelica's, her interest in Hamilton, that little subtext that you catch. So actually, Angelica apparently didn't meet Hamilton in real life until she was already married with kids. So some cute little interesting details like that make the book kind of interesting to read as well. So if you're interested in Alex and Eliza, check that one out.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really Angelica's subtext. She has a whole song.
Oh yeah, I know.
It's very obvious.
Yes, satisfied, never satisfied, right?
My first book is also a fiction title, and this one is called Hamilton and Peggy. It is about the lesser Schuyler sister, I suppose, or at least the youngest, the one who doesn't get as much stage time in the musical. And it is a fictional account of her, and we get to learn a lot about Peggy, who was the youngest of those three Schuyler sisters, who were these charming women who were very well known, in large part because of their father, William Schuyler, who was a prominent figure during the Revolutionary War.
Right.
And he was also later a senator. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But so one part, if we're talking the musical, in Hamilton's lines in the song Helpless, he says that Peggy confides in him. And the author of this book, L.M. Elliott, she did her research. She went through journals and letters and things, and Peggy and Hamilton really did have a good friendship and a correspondence. And that actually started when this young man, Hamilton, who was an assistant of Washington's, reached out to Peggy for her help in wooing her older sister, Eliza, who had many beaux at the time, and he wanted to stand out. So he thought if he kind of got in with the younger sister a little bit, she would help that. So she was instrumental in helping encourage Eliza towards Hamilton. But also, this book is really more about Peggy and very much about her interest in things that were not deemed women's things back then. So she was very interested in what was going on with the war, with the military and all of this stuff. And she had a tendency to eavesdrop at doors, open letters that maybe weren't addressed to her, and even do spying. And, you know, she might be the sister that we know the least about from the musical, but she was a spunky woman in her own right and a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, that sounds really cool. And that's one of the things I love about Hamilton. The whole ensemble, all the characters were so interesting. So just even Peggy, like a book about Peggy just sounds really interesting to me. So that's cool. Speaking of spying, my next book is about George Washington. So obviously a big part in Hamilton as well. He was one of my favorite characters, I think, in the play. So that, I really liked him, the actor who played him. But anyway, so this book is called George Washington's Secret Six, The Spy Ring That Saved the American Revolution by Brian Kilmeade and Dan Yaeger. And so this is a nonfiction work, but it's told like almost like a novel. So it's really full of suspense. It's about the Culper Ring. So the Culper Ring was a team of secret spies that Washington was head over during the Revolutionary War. And they're kind of little known. They're not as well known as some of the bigger names from that time, but they were instrumental in helping the Americans win the war. So they would do things like use secret ink, use clotheslines to give secret messages, to, you know, infiltrate the British lines and find out secret information. And these spies were really inconspicuous people, so coffee house owners, tavern owners, and there was one woman named Agent 355 who to this day they still don't know her identity. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of interesting characters in this book. Hercules Mulligan, you may have remembered, he was a spy in Hamilton. So he worked with the Culper Ring. So it's kind of interesting how all these characters kind of interweave together in the larger story. So really interesting, entertaining nonfiction read.
So is that what they allude to in that one song where they say they had a spy on the inside and it was Hercules Mulligan?
Yes, absolutely. So you learn something new. So I just found that really interesting.
That is, yeah. My last book is called The Duel, The Parallel Lives of Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr by Judith St. George. And this book actually came out before Hamilton, and then it was republished after Hamilton, because obviously there was a greater interest in it then.
Yeah, for sure.
And this book is made for teens. It's very short. It's less than 100 pages, but it is packed with information exploring these two big figures' lives. Yeah. And it starts off for both of the men like very early in life, and it jumps back and forth between them, telling you a little bit about them and where they proceeded. And so like it starts off with Hamilton, and you learn more about Hamilton's early life with his parents. You know, we all know that opening number song where it describes him as the bastard orphan son.
Right.
And so it kind of explores that background a little bit, and even mentions the fact that Hamilton had an older brother that I didn't know about.
Oh, yeah.
Talks a little bit more about Aaron Burr's childhood as well, because he was also orphaned, which we know from the play too, but, you know, goes into like more detail about his upbringing, which was really chaotic and very like unstable, because he was passed from like family household to household for a while there. And even talks about those collegiate years for both Hamilton and Burr, which we'll learn about a little bit there too. But basically the thing that I thought was most interesting in this is it really builds up more of the information about what started this feud between these two men, and sort of how they got to where they were, to the point where they came to duel, which dueling was relatively common, but even so, you know, not as often resulted in death. Sorry, 200-year-old spoiler alert there. But what's really interesting to me is it talks about their military years, and it lists all these different instances where Burr basically saw Hamilton as the one who kept him from something he wanted, and even more than what you see in the play. And what I found was interesting too is, not being a Revolutionary War historian myself or history fanatic myself, I didn't know the timeline of all of these events because, in the play, it all goes really fast.
Right.
And so even to find out that the duel between Hamilton and Burr took place 4 years after the Jefferson election was sort of news to me, since, the play lays it out almost like it happened immediately. But it actually happened after Burr ran unsuccessfully for governor of New York.
Wow.
So there's a lot of information packed into this short book. It's a really quick read, and it's very easy to read through. And I definitely recommend it to anyone who is interested in the Hamilton play, learning a little bit more about Hamilton and Burr.
That's awesome. I love, in fact, my favorite song from the musical is that Dear Theodosia, where it's both of them singing. I mentioned it to you before, but the parallels. So it is very interesting, their relationship and why it had to come to that. Why did it have to come to a duel? So I definitely.
And the book even does tell you, there's a little epilogue that tells you what happened to Aaron Burr after all of that. And it is really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys for watching today. All booked up with Cailey and Meg. Next week, we're hoping to bring you adult fantasy titles. So any of those space themed or any fantasy mystical worlds, we're going to be going over all that sort of stuff with you next week.
Yes. And hopefully we'll see you there. Hopefully you try some of these books that we talked about today and learn a little bit more about Hamilton before you watch the play for the 4th, 5th, 6th time, whatever it means for you.
Yep.
All right.
May as well enjoy.
Yeah. Happy reading.
How does it